The Steam Deck just got another update. This one brought with it a bunch of quality of life features. I'll talk about that. Plus, we have some evidence that a certain graphics card manufacturer, well, they're looking to expand into Linux territory, which could be really good news for anybody out there looking for Valve to bring back the Steam machines. I know that I'm one of those people. Plus, we've got a new trailer for a game that I didn't know that I wanted to play, but now I absolutely can't wait for. Some gameplay footage of a game that people have been waiting for a really long time. And of course, layoffs and leaks, because not a week can go by without Embracer Group firing a bunch of devs like it's something that they're hooked on. What's up, everybody? I'm Bill, and welcome back to the NerdNest. This is my channel all about the video game industry. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, as only about 50% of the people who watch my videos are actually subscribed. All right, let's get started, and I want to get started with things from the Steam Deck. So, while I don't cover every SteamOS update, but when one comes out and it has some good features, it's definitely something that I like to talk about. Well, Valve just updated SteamOS on the stable channel. There's multiple channels that you can be on in order to update SteamOS. This is the one that's safest for everybody. And we've got some new quality of life features, including the ability to see battery life on your Bluetooth controllers. All you have to do is hit the quick access menu button, and it'll show you all of the controllers that you have connected, as well as their current charge state. This is great because not all controllers will let you know when they're running low. And I cannot tell you how many times that I've sat down to play a game and my controller is dead. Now, this is absolutely my fault because I've become very lazy about charging my controllers. Usually I just set them on the guitar hooks on my wall and then move on. Now, with Xbox controllers, that isn't a huge deal because you can always just swap out the batteries, but I have a lot of controllers that don't have swappable batteries. They need to be plugged in, so I need to do better. But at least now, I'll have a bit more of a warning before they run dry. There were a few other fixes in the latest operating system as well, as some updates to Steam Input where they have improved gyro to mouse, they fixed some glyph-related bugs, and some more other stuff. If you want to learn a bunch about Steam Input, stick around till the end and I'll tell you a video that you can watch that'll help you out with that. In addition to that, we also have recently had an update to Proton, where we're now at Proton 9.0-2. The big change here seems to implement some changes to make it easier to play some older games that were I mean, they're obviously made well before the Steam Deck existed, and they have external launchers. And most of the time, external launchers are something I have a tendency to complain about. I find them to be kind of irritating, although not a huge deal. But some games are much worse than others. Some games have launchers that require you to go into the launcher itself in order to change any graphical settings for the game. So if you're playing the game, you can't change anything. In these games, they always kind of drive me crazy on the Steam Deck because they'll often pop up a tiny little window and you have to use the trackpad as a mouse to make any changes. And if you haven't already set up your system to work like that, that's one more thing that you have to change. Recently, Bethesda fixed Fallout 4 by removing that launcher, but it wasn't really a fix because now you can't adjust the in-game settings at all. What Valve has done is given us the ability to adjust these settings using the built-in controls of the Steam Deck, like the D-pad and face buttons, without having to emulate a mouse. I, for one, welcome this change. Some may say that it is on the publishers and the developers in order to do this kind of thing, but they made these games before the Steam Deck existed. It's not their fault that Valve is using a non-standard, PC experience. And so I understand why a lot of times they won't go back and fix these or make these kind of adjustments. And when they do, sometimes they screw it up. For instance, when Bethesda did it for Fallout 4, they actually made it a worse experience. So I prefer the way that Valve is handling this. In fact, one of the games that Valve fixed is Fallout 4, which is awesome. With the recent show, Fallout is top of mind for quite a lot of people, and now it's going to be easier for people to adjust the settings in Fallout 4 thanks to Valve. However, because a lot of these games have their own way of doing things, Valve is going to have to go through these games one at a time to make these fixes. It's going to take them quite a lot of time, but there's not a whole lot of new games that do this or user interface for settings adjustments, and only the biggest publishers tend to use extra launchers. So I think once Valve has it done, it's going to be pretty smooth sailing, which is great. SteamOS just keeps getting better for gaming, and it seems like that idea isn't lost on NVIDIA. NVIDIA recently announced that they're exploring upstream kernel mode GPU drivers for their hardware. Now, I have to be honest, a lot of the chatter here is above my pay grade when it comes to tech, so I don't know how consequential this change will be, but it seems like another small step in the right direction of supporting operating systems that aren't Windows. Recently, Linux reached 2% of the market on Steam, and this has been bolstered by SteamOS. And while 2% is absolutely a small number, I mean, it's a really small number, but it's a significant gain from before SteamOS 3.0 launched. I think that as it moves forward, we'll continue to see Linux gaming grow, especially since Valve has done the hard work of getting Windows games to run on Linux. The first time around, Valve depended on publishers to port their games, and publishers said, no, that market is too small. And while the market still is pretty small, Valve just did it themselves. I have an entire video about that process linked down below that like button at the end of this video, so make sure you stick around and check it out. But with the Steam Deck gaining traction and Valve promising to make SteamOS available on other hardware at some point, I can totally see NVIDIA wanting to cover their bases. Right now, all the handhelds are running AMD hardware, with the exception of the Claw from MSI, which runs Intel hardware. I think NVIDIA, they obviously have serious chops when it comes to making mobile processors. They made the Tegra X1 chip that's in the Switch, and it's rumored that they're making the chip for the Switch 2 as well. They clearly know how to make the hardware, but right now, the hardware isn't compatible with SteamOS. And if Valve continues to make inroads with SteamOS, NVIDIA is definitely going to want to be there as part of that conversation, just in case Valve does put out new Steam machines or make the software available so third parties can make those Steam machines. Moving on, one of my favorite horror games of all time is Alien Isolation. This game is giving me some serious Alien Isolation vibes, and we just got the first trailer for A Quiet Place: The Road Ahead. If you didn't know, A Quiet Place is an amazing horror movie starring John Krasinski and his wife Emily Blunt, where they are hunted by aliens that have kind of amazing hearing, but they can't see anything, so you have to be really, really quiet. Well, in this trailer, we see exactly what the gameplay looks like, and I have not been this excited for a horror game, I think, ever, especially not since Alien Isolation. It comes out this year, and I can see from the trailer it absolutely has taken inspiration from Alien Isolation, which is a good thing because Alien Isolation is amazing. Speaking of trailers, we got an extended look at gameplay for the new Dragon Age game, Dragon Age Veilguard, I think is how you call it. We've not seen a new Dragon Age game in over 10 years at this point. I think a lot of people have been yearning to revisit that world. From what we've seen in this trailer, it definitely feels more like an action game than a traditional Dragon Age game, which felt like a mix between tactical and real-time combat, but it never really felt like an action game, at least not to me. The combat in Veilguard feels very fast and very fluid, and perhaps that's what you're looking for from this game, but I feel like it's a lot less RPG and more of a button masher. Of course, it is hard to tell just from watching this footage alone, and I will reserve judgment until I actually get my hands on it. It looks cool, but it feels like a departure from Dragon Age. What I think is best about this is the monetization model, though. BioWare has now said that this game will have no battle passes, no online, no microtransactions. They have said that they won't be forcing crappy microtransactions down your throat in order to play this game. Here's their actual quote. I just want to underscore this. I want to emphasize it. There's not going to be any microtransactions. There's not going to be any battle passes. You don't have to connect online. Our focus is on making this the most complete single-player game that we possibly can. And I think that this is fantastic news, especially coming from a publisher like EA. In fact, you don't have to even link your EA account with this game if you don't want to. In a world of games that require online for single player games or force you to sign up for an extra account, I think that this is awesome that BioWare and EA are doing it right with Dragon Age. And I don't know if the game will be good or not, but this is a good move. And if I'm going to call out bad behavior from these companies, I need to remember to call out when they do something right as well. Well, not talking about doing something right, layoffs and leaks. Can a week go by without me having to talk about layoffs? Yet another group of devs got their pink slips today. Yet again from Embracer Group, the folks that made the newest Alone in the Dark game got the axe this week. I haven't played the game, even though it was definitely something I was interested in. I love the setting, and I played the hell out of Alone in the Dark on my PC back in like the late 90s. And this game even had a cast that I was excited for, but when it came down to it, I didn't buy it, I didn't play it, and a lot of people didn't. And now Embracer Group is laying off the people that made the game. So is that my fault? It might be. On to the leaks. We have some gameplay of the new Wolverine game, and I'm not going to put those on the screen as I don't want anybody coming after me. So I have to say this game does look fun, but nothing really jumps out at me as unique. It feels like a Batman Arkham game or a Spider-Man game, both of which are great games, and I'm sure that this is going to be a blast as well. But I don't know what I was expecting, but I certainly was not expecting this. I guess I should have, though. It feels like the typical superhero surrounded by bad guys, and when they get ready to attack, you get a warning on screen. You press the appropriate button at the right time, you dodge, and then you can button mash to take the bad guys out. And while the Spider-Man games, they've shown that there's still a huge audience for this style of combat, I don't know if it appeals to me, but I'm going to wait until it comes out officially before I rush to judgment. But you know what I should rush to is showing you this video right here. If you want to learn more about Steam input, make sure you check it out. Or if you want to watch the latest episode of the NerdNest podcast, then check out this video right down here. From the NerdNest, I'm Bill, and I hope you stay rad.